I feel like people come here and somehow they're shocked that LA is expensive. It's a top three US city. I feel like it's basically New York, LA, San Francisco. These three cities, you go there, be ready. Be ready to spend. It's gonna be expensive. Uber, expensive. Food, expensive. Gas, expensive. Like, it's just gonna be expensive. Just whatever it is that you spend in your city or in your country, just double it. Or if you want to be on the safe side, just triple it. Hey guys, it's ID, and today I wanted to help LA tourists and visitors out because I recently had a friend that's visiting from Brazil, actually. So, super, super mega tourist clueless about LA and SoCal in general. And she has been struggling, and I've been watching her struggle, and it made me realize that there are a lot of things that I just take for granted and that I just know about LA that a lot of tourists that are just showing up have no idea. Like literally no idea, and end up, making a bunch of mistakes or just not planning properly and end up just having like a really tough or unpleasant trip. So I figured it would be cool. I feel like there might be a lot of these videos out here of like what to expect visiting LA or tips for visiting LA. But let me just do my version because, people have told me that I'd be keeping it real and sharing information that maybe other channels are not really sharing or not being honest about or just don't think about. So I think the first thing that I will highlight based on this friend's experience is thinking about the best time to visit LA, or like just being cognizant of the time of the year that you're visiting LA. And I say this because LA is very different depending on when you are visiting. If you're visiting in the summer, which I would classify as like June-ish, end of June, July to September-ish. And I say ish because LA weather, at least from my experience being here these past few years, is ish. Like it will be hot-ish, cold-ish. It's never just like straight up. Like you guys have probably seen like one of my other videos where I explain like it will be like 50, 60 degrees in the morning and then 80, 90 degrees in the afternoon and then 60 degrees at night. So huge variation, huge range in temperature in LA. So that's why I'm saying ish. Anyway, depending on the time of the year, if you come in the summer, it's gonna be hot, especially depending on where you are staying. If you're staying in Santa Monica, Venice, by the ocean, it will be cooler, probably a max of 80 degrees, but it will still feel hot, especially if you're not used to heat, especially if you are light skinned or white. You will burn. Even my cousin who came to visit and is fully Nigerian, African, but fairer skinned, she burned. She walked outside for like, I think an hour. She was walking around exploring downtown LA and she got burned. I have never gotten burned. Could be for many reasons. I don't know if it's just because I have more melanin or if it's because um, I've just been in places with more sun for a longer time or because I'm a superhuman, super genetic, whatever you want to call it. But I haven't burned, but I know other people that have. So if you're coming in the summer, bring sunscreen, wear your sunscreen, bring your hats, be prepared, be ready to stay hydrated, and plan your trip in a way where you're not going to be out in the sun for long periods of time. And by long, I mean like over 40 minutes at a time. So if you want to be going hiking, if you want to be going to the beach, if you want to be walking around and exploring, either like be ready to cover yourself or be ready to cover yourself in sunscreen or to take breaks somehow in between. So that's the first thing. Be cognizant of the time of the year. If you're coming in the summer, be ready for heat. But again, like I said, it does get colder in the evening, regardless of which part of the city you're in. But especially if you're by the ocean, Santa Monica, Venice, like along the beach areas. But it happens in the whole city. So just be ready for that, because I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, were not ready for that. In my mind, California was always supposed to be a hot place. So I was actually disappointed to find out that, especially in the evenings, it gets cold, like 60 degrees. Like you gotta wear a sweater or something. I don't like that. I'm not a huge fan of that. But anyway, just be aware of this and be ready for that. If you come in the summer as well, I think be more prepared for a lot of tourists to be here, because obviously summer is like summer vacation. So a lot of Americans will probably be here hanging out, checking things out, doing different tours. So you have to be ready for like longer lines, and ready for things to be more expensive, which takes me to the second topic. Um, oh, but I guess before I go to that, let me finish on the weather thing. If you don't come in the summer, the rest of the year, LA is pretty temperate to cold. So it will be like high of 70, 75 degrees if you're outside, like let's say like 12 p.m. to like 4 p.m. But then outside of that, it will be at least 15 to 20 degrees colder. So, for example, like December, January, it does get as cold as like 45 is the lowest I've probably seen, which at that point you need a full on jacket. Um, but more often, probably 55 to 60, where you might want a light jacket or like a heavier sweater type of thing. But it does get relatively cold. Not like cold, cold, that you're like freezing, but it does get cold. So you have to be ready for that. I have a friend that came to visit back in November, and she was only here for 3 days, and it sucked because while she was here, it was cold and it was cloudy. So LA, when it's cold and cloudy, is not the same experience. You're not going to be able to enjoy the beaches, the palm trees, like just like that SoCal easy breezy fun loving life. It's a different vibe. So you have to be ready for that. If you're coming in the winter, or I would even dare say the spring, but probably mostly winter, like November through March, be ready for that. If you're only coming for 2, 3 days, be ready for the fact that the weather might not cooperate. And you're not going to get to see LA in its like fullest beauty, bluest oceans, bluest skies, like warmest, funnest times, which is going to be a different experience. You're going to probably want to do more indoor stuff. Or if you do outdoor stuff, you're going to have your jacket on, like that kind of thing. So be ready for that. I feel like that's all I have to say about weather. It doesn't really rain here, so you don't have to be too worried about that. It's really just like having some layers in case it gets colder and having sunscreen and covering in case it gets really hot. That's pretty much it. Oh, and it's dry. The weather out here is dry, so bring lotion and chapstick. You're welcome. Okay, so second thing is price. I feel like people come here and somehow they're shocked that LA is expensive. It's a top 3 US city. I feel like it's basically New York, LA, San Francisco. These 3 cities, you go there, be ready. Be ready to spend. It's gonna be expensive. Uber, expensive. Food, expensive. Gas, expensive. Like, it's just gonna be expensive. And I guess a lot of people just come from other places and just somehow they're not ready. But I would say, to be safe, just whatever it is that you spend in your city or in your country, just double it. Or if you want to be on the safe side, just triple it. Because even in the time I've been in LA, the price of gas has doubled. Like even here, it's doubled. So that means coming from wherever you're coming from is probably going to be triple, if not more. So come with a generous budget, or come just, ready to adapt as the circumstances hit you, because it's gonna hit you. It's gonna hit you hard, and it's not fun. And a lot of the restaurants here, easily you go out and you eat, and you're easily spending $100. Like, it's just expensive here. I don't really know how else to explain it or what else to say about it. My friend said that she went to take one of those like rent by the minute like bikes to go ride across from Santa Monica to Venice, which technically on the map they're right next to each other. They look close. It's LA. it's a super spread out city. Nothing is close. So I think she said that she rode the bike for maybe like 30 minutes, something like that. And it cost $60. So, I'm not great with mental math, but I guess it was like $2 per minute or something crazy. I don't know. But it was not cheap. So same thing with Ubers. If you want to go from Santa Monica to Hollywood, $60, $70. The Ubers here are not cheap. The good news is I know they started bringing back the shared Ubers. They didn't have that during the pandemic. So that might cut the price down like 30%, but it's still going to be expensive. It's not going to be like other cities. Like I know in Seattle, you could take an Uber from the airport to downtown and pay $20, $30. Even in Seattle, I think they don't even have that anymore because of the pandemic, inflation, gas prices, and everything. So yeah, just be ready to spend, I would say, $40 to $80 on Uber, regardless of where you're going. Unless you're going like really close, then maybe it'll be $20. But it's gonna be expensive and it sucks. So be ready to have a car. If you want to go to a lot of places, be ready to rent a car. Renting the car is gonna be expensive. Gas is gonna be expensive. It's like if you're coming to LA, just be ready to spend. Be ready to spend because that's just how life is out here. And what else? Be ready for, especially if people come to LA, they're like, oh, the food in LA is amazing. Da, da, da. It is amazing, but be ready to get reservations for the most amazing places. If you don't have a reservation, then you'll have to be on the wait list. If you go on the wait list, then you're gonna have to wait 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get a table, and you might be getting a table that's inconvenient. It could be at the bar, it could be in a corner somewhere, it could be, you know, indoors, and so then you'll get more COVID exposure. So if you really want to like have an ideal table, time, plan, whatever, then you want to book at least, I would say, like a week in advance, ideally. But at most, like 3, 4 days in advance. If you try to do anything like the day before or the day of, it's going to be hard and you're going to end up with the restaurants that are not as great. You'll still find okay things, but it's not going to be the great ones. And in LA, my experience has been either a restaurant is great or it's mediocre. So do with that what you will. What else might be helpful for people? There are a lot of homeless people here. Covered that in another video. Be ready for that. For the most part, they're not going to hurt you, so you don't have to worry about like safety. Like I feel relatively safe walking around LA at night. I know other people don't. I feel fine. The homeless people have never done anything to me. To me, I just see them as mental health crises and people that need help. And if I'm minding my business and staying out of their way, they're not going to go out of their way to come to me. That's been my experience. But, that could be me being a New Yorker and just being used to life, that part of life. I'm trying to think what else. I guess the last thing I would just say is just like, do try to plan ahead and figure out the things that you want to do, so that you can actually like do it in a way that makes sense. Because LA is super spread out. Each region has different weather, different traffic patterns. Traffic is a killer here. So if you're going in the wrong direction at the wrong time and you're taking Uber, you're going to be paying easily $100, $120 for something that could have been $50 just because you chose the wrong time or the wrong day or whatever. So just try to plan things out. Try to avoid rush hour, which is usually like 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And try to connect with friends where you can because they will help you a lot to figure out what to do, when to do it, how to get around. And I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop it here because I don't want it to be a super long video. But long way around is to just do your research. There's a lot of information you can find about LA online. So just make sure you try and do research before you come and you'll save yourself a lot of pain and a lot of trouble and try to just have the best possible trip that you can. And there's a lot to explore outside of LA too. There are so many different cool areas around LA. So definitely you'll want to plan in advance to make sure that you can go check those out and enjoy it as well. So that's basically it. Let me know if you guys have thoughts, comments, anything else you want me to speak on. And please be sure to subscribe. Trying to get to 1,000 followers. So help me out if this video was at all helpful or cool. And I'll talk to you guys later.